In this video, I'm going to show you how to add stitches on your character's outfit. Now, we are going to first add the stitches on the pants area. And if you guys look at my reference here, okay, so I'm going to be adding the stitches around this area, these areas right here. You can see it where the seams are at. That's where I'm going to be adding the stitches. So I have right here. Okay, so I already have like a guide there because of my sculpting details that I made in Blender. And those guides there are going to serve as a guide for us for where we're going to add our stitches, okay? And before we add the stitches, let's go to our material for our outfit. So this is the material that we added, fabric burlap. I'm going to go ahead and just hide that for now. That way we're going to be easily see our sculpting details, which is we're also going to be able to see the seams that we have sculpted, all right? And for the stitches, we could go ahead and just add a brand new fill layer. And we could go ahead and call it stitch. I like to add my stitches layer all the way at the top because I know later on I'm going to be adding other stitches, maybe on the shirt or maybe on the holster area, other areas. And I like to just put it all the way to the top so that it will be able to show. And I'm going to go ahead and just set the color to a color that will make it pop out based on the pants color right now. If I go ahead and hide it, right now it's gray. So I like to create a stitch that is going to be very contrasted on this color of the pants. So I'm going to set this to a black color stitches. I'm going to change it later to whatever color I want for the stitches, but for now I like to set it to black so I could see exactly where it is I'm adding the stitches. It's just going to be very noticeable when I add it. And we could go ahead and add a mask. Right click, add black mask. Okay, so now we no longer see the black color. We are going to be adding a paint layer on that mask. Right click, add paint. All right, with that paint, we are going to be painting our stitches. And if we go to our brushes area right here and then just type in stitch on the search here, and then you're going to be able to see different types of stitches that you could play around with. The one that I like to use is going to be the stitches one. Go ahead and mess around with the other stitches here. You might like other stitches here depending on your outfit. But we are going to, for my pants, I'm going to be using stitches 1. And then we could go to our properties tab right here. And there are a few settings here that we could tinker with. First is going to be the size. Right now it's 6.98. If I go ahead and click and drag, you could see what's happening. I have the stitches is pretty big. I'm going to undo that. Another thing is, when creating stitches, I do like to turn this on, which is going to be kind of like the lazy mouse in ZBrush. If you're doing like a very straight, it is lazy mouse. It's called lazy mouse. You could turn that on, and then you could crank it up all the way to 20. The higher the value for the distance for the lazy mouse, the straighter line you're going to be able to draw, the more straight and more stabilized your mouse is going to be when you draw a straight line, okay? So I like to turn that on. I like to crank it up depending on exactly where I'm doing the stitches. If I have a lot of curves though, I like it to be a lower value, the distance. But yeah, I'll set it to 20 for now. Later on I could adjust it. And then for the paint here, with your paint selected, you go to properties here. And for the size, I do not want it to be that big. So I'm going to set it to a lower value. If I set it to 1, and I just click and drag, this is what I have. Okay, so maybe this is still a little too large for me. So I'm going to set it to maybe 0.7 and play around with it again. Okay, maybe that's okay. The only thing is if we look, I think that we could probably reduce the spacing. I think that I could add a little bit more spacing in between the stitches. So we have a stitch right there, and then we have a space, and then we have a stitch right there, and then we have a space, stitch, and then space. So if you want to increase the spacing in between the stitch, then we could go ahead and go to spacing right here and play around with that value. Right now it's at 62. If I set it to 85, And by the way, let me undo what I've done there. So I have the spacing 25, and I'm gonna mess around with this again. Might be a little too much. Maybe I could set it to 80. Okay, that's good. And I think I could bring down the size. Might be a little too large. Set it to 0.5. See here. See from far away. Maybe 0.55. So I like to look at it from up close and also from afar. And I think I'm going to go and click and drag and look at it from here. Might be a little too much. You know what? I'm going to set to 0.52. And then I'm going to go and see. Okay, I'm going to turn down my distance. I think I could set it to 10. And see from afar. Yeah, I think that stitch would be fine. And another thing is make sure that you have follow path on, okay? Because if you don't have follow path on, and then let's say this is off, and you just click and drag, you see how it's not following the path for where you want the stitch to go. So it's very important for the follow path to be turned on as you are doing your stitches. Okay, so now that I have the settings that I have the size that I need for my stitches. What I also like to do is I like to turn on my symmetry right there. So I could do it on both sides. Of course, you're going to turn that off if your stuff is not completely symmetrical, but in my case it is. And I also like to just hold shift, right click, and just drag. So I could get rid of the shadow as I'm doing this. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and start adding the stitches here. Okay. Maybe a bit too much. Okay, right there. If you kind of mess up a little bit, that's okay. You could always go to your basic hard brush, right? And you could bring down the size of that. You could press X. And then if you're on a black color, you could go ahead and remove that. See? Easily remove that there. And you could turn off the lazy mouse as you erase this. So if there's anything that you kind of messed up, you could also just go ahead and do this, and then you could press X on your keyboard to go back to white. White reveals the black color for your fill. So you could kind of do it manually on the areas that you mess up. So that's no problem. So here I can manually just add it back. So here, just add it back manually if I kind of mess up. And then I could go back to my stitch. Stitches 1. Oh goodness. And I believe for this one I set it to 0.52. And for this I set it to 80. Okay, I'm going to turn on my distance. Alright, cool. Now I could go ahead and continue on with the pat. All around. Okay, so this is also, it also matters how you look at it in your camera. So make sure that you are looking straight at the front view, and then you go ahead and navigate like this. And there you go. Now I could go ahead and do this here. And if it starts to get slanted, go ahead and just navigate your camera so you're looking straight at the front, and it should fix that issue. And I could go ahead and navigate again, and maybe I could look in this direction and just drag. I'm gonna go ahead and just find a better view, and like this. That. Okay, and gonna go and do this one. Also here. Going all around. All right, and then over here. Also here. And over here, continuously rotating the camera so you get a much better stitch this straightening out. Then going all around like this. And I'm gonna zoom out, find a good view. You don't want to have it like go inside the pants, because if you do that, you're not going to be able to sculpt on the right surface. All right. Okay, so let's see how it looks like if we add some height map to this, because right now it looks looking flat, right? But if we go to our thumbnail here for our stitches, and if we go ahead and hold the alt key on our keyboard and click on the height here on the material, so now we only have height turned on and the rest are turned off, and we could go ahead and mess around with the height. You see how you're able to make it pop out more by cranking up the value of the height. And you could also look at it from afar away. If you want to make it show up even more from afar, you could just go and crank that up. All right, so maybe 0.03 would be the best. I'm gonna go set to 0.03. Okay, and you also want to add color. You could go and turn on the color here, and you could set the color to whatever color you want your stitch to be. So if I want mine to be like green, I could do that. Black, I can. All right, you could always go back to it anytime. And let me see how it looks like with the pants. So I'm gonna turn on my material for my pants. All right, and I'm gonna go ahead and use my eyedropper and set it to a color that's similar to the pants, and maybe make it slightly darker. Another thing is for the pants area here, I believe that it's a little too much, the pattern. The pattern is, the height for the pants is too much for my material here. So I'm going to go to each of the pattern for my fabric burlap, all right? And I'm going to go hide each of these again for my material for my pants. Okay, so the base colors there. pattern is there. Okay, so you could see that the pattern is way too much. I'm gonna go to my weave here and just kind of bring that down. All right, and I'm gonna go to my surface details. Okay, so for this one, maybe I could crank it slightly down. And I could go to my masking, go over here and bring it down slightly. And I'm gonna go turn on my surface detail too. This is also a little too much. I'm gonna go to my masking, my Gaussian spots here, and just gonna bring that down. You can see just by bringing these down, you're able to see more of the stitch there. I'm gonna turn on the edges. Maybe for the edges, I'm also gonna bring the mask editor down. Click on the main thumbnail and down. Turn on the height details. Height details might be a little too much. Okay, so for the height details here, we could also crank up the tiling. So if you crank up the tiling for the height details, it becomes a little bit more subtle also. Could also mess around with the color details if you need to for the parameters. Right? Okay, and yeah, I could also go back to my stitch here. So maybe if I don't think it's enough to show, I could crank up my stitches, push it up or push it down. So if you want it more pushed, then you can. I'm gonna go and push it out like that. All right, so let's see how it looks like without it and with it. You can see the huge difference. I'm actually gonna set it to a darker color. There you go. This is how it looks like without it, with it. Okay, so it's looking so much better with the stitches. And we are going to basically do the same thing for the areas of the pants. So I'm going to be adding some stitches around this area. So I already have my guidelines here. Stitches here, stitches there. All right. So it's going to be the same process of how we're going to add these stitches. And just keep in mind, try to remember or take note of, if you go to paint here, just take note of the size of your stitches brush and also for the height of your the value for the spacing. So make sure you have follow pattern on as you're doing this. And as I mentioned before, you could always go back, go to your basic hard brush and customize. If you mess up on any of the stitches, you could always mask it out and then kind of implement your own stitch. Oops. Yeah, you could mess it out and then put back your own stitch wherever you want it. Okay. But yeah, you could go ahead and watch me doing the same process for the rest of the stitches. And yeah, I'm gonna go over back to make sure I have my stitch brush. All right, I'm gonna play a music in the background. Feel free to listen as I do this.